Hello and welcome to We Care Conversations, a mental health podcast brought to you by the Mental Health and Recovery Services Board of Allen, Auglaize, and Hardin counties. I am one of your hosts, Cody Ridenauer.
I am your other host, Elisa Bradley, licensed professional counselor and community advocate.
Ooh, I don't have all those cool titles.
Oh, yeah, but it's cool.
So who do we have today, Lisa?
So it's my honor to introduce and sit down today with Dr. Mary Iiames. She is a friend and educator, and I am just overjoyed to have you here in the studio today. So I'm going to allow you to introduce yourself and tell our audience what you would like them to know about you.
Okay, so just a couple other things. I was originally from Bluffton, moved south to Lima, so I've been here for well over decades. And now I was a school counselor at Perry Elementary School, was there for actually 33 years, retired after 34, but still a counselor educator at Weinbrenner Theological Seminary. They have a clinical counseling program. I'm the program director, and I'm also an assistant professor in the program. Okay. So also, I'm a grief recovery specialist. So do you mind grabbing that book for me?
Absolutely.
So the Grief Recovery Handbook, so if you haven't seen this, the Grief Recovery Handbook, written by John James and Russell Friedman, is a book that a person can read on their own. It's suggested that you would have a partner with that. But it is also a book that you can join a group. And I'm a grief recovery specialist, and I lead those groups in the Iiames board in Hancock County, and I'm also getting ready to start some here in Allen County.
Fantastic. Yeah. But I was also wanting you to speak about the family. You can't be on a podcast and not throw some love to the family.
All right. And so I've been married for 31 years. Yeah, I think that's right.
Usually it's the guy that has to think of it.
It's like 31 years. Is that right? Well, it's kind of early in the morning. So-ish. So 31 years. Jeff works at Honda of America, which I know that Lisa's familiar with. So he's down at the Anna plant. I have two daughters. One, Brooklyn, is 26. She's a nurse in Columbus with the Ohio State Network. And then my other daughter, Riley, is 24. She's at Cridersville Elementary School, intervention specialist.
I love it when she talks about her family and her kids because the corners just turn up.
And the favorite child, Lulu, miniature poodle, 9 years old, not a therapy dog, a dog that needs therapy. Okay.
That's her tag. And I just need to share. I love Lulu because she wants to engage, but she's terrified. Her tail wags, but she's mostly shaking.
Yeah, she's got some serious anxiety. Yeah.
My dog does too, so yeah.
Simba doesn't. Simba's never met a stranger. So now that we've got all of our furry friends out there and taken care of, let's talk about the topic of today's conversation, which is grief in our communities, in our families, in our professions. We know that a lot of folks don't recognize that they are grieving, and I'm just going to toss it out there. How would you define grief, just for the top of the conversation? And then what are some of the things that we should be looking out for?
Okay, so grief is honestly just a natural response to any kind of loss. Any kind of loss. And we'll go through some of those losses. So it's the natural response to any kind of loss. But it is also the feelings that are associated or caused by any kind of change in that normal routine or way that you do life. What you expect is no longer expected because things have changed. So those changes and transitions in your life are also grief. So we think of grief related to the death of a loved one.
But it's so much more.
Oh, and so I when I teach this, because I also teach a class called Counseling Dying and Grieving. It's a 12-week course that I teach at Weinbrenner. I think that when people come into the course, their thought is we're going to be learning about how to help a person who's grieving the loss due to death of a loved one. But it's not. It's so much more. It's anytime that there's a transition. I think of 2020. So we think of when the world shut down. There was a picture in the Lima News of girls, high school girls, wailing and hugging each other. Now, we would think, oh, maybe that was related to a school shooting. It was not. In 2020, in March, down at the Ohio State basketball championships, girls championships, they had practiced and worked so hard for years. They're down there. They stopped the game and said, "Go home." Yep. And you could see just the grief, but it's not just grief is the feeling. Mourning is the outpouring of the grief. So when it just comes in and pours out, that's the mourning. Girls are mourning. And so we think of 2020, all of those losses. There was loss of life, but there was loss of life as we know it. Kiddos were sent home. Teachers were sent home. But all of those athletes who had worked for years, think of the Shawnee basketball team. Oh, we were here. Those boys were not from different schools all coming together. They were from the same community, all played together, and then could not play those final games. Wrestlers could not wrestle the final match. And so they left with the business unfinished.
So you spoke about our young people, which kind of started there, which is awesome because we don't want to leave out our young people. Since we're speaking about professions and work types of situations, what about the nurses and the doctors and all of those medical providers during that time?
So grief is the gift that keeps on giving. And especially for our first responders, unfortunately, they're frequently not given time to process or even mourn a grief. They have to basically, for lack of better words in the morning, suck it up and go on. And so we would have nurses go into a room and see a person actively dying, and then they have to pull it together because in the next room you have to go in with this attitude. Yes, it's a fresh start. You have to show that, yes, here I am, cheery and hopeful and positive, when they've just left someone who's actively dying. And so for our nurses and first responders, they were coming into these situations where they were seeing death on constantly and then having to go home to their families. And their families are expecting that normal attitude, that normal personality to walk through the door, and they're not seeing that. So it was the grief that just kept seeping into every nook and cranny of our lives.
Yeah. I think it's really important to think of other situations where grief can pop up. For me personally, my life changed. I had a couple friends move away, and that just, I lost friends. They didn't die, but they weren't as much in my life anymore. And it took me a long time to realize I'm feeling grief. That's what this is. That's what's happening.
Right.
And then it took me even longer to figure out how do I mourn that and move on, and I'm still working on it. So what are some other ways that grief can pop up? Some maybe easier examples.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a word for it. It's called disenfranchised grief. Disenfranchised grief. Disenfranchised grief is the losses and the grief that you're feeling, but no one recognizes. So think of when you've lost a pet. We said, who's the favorite child? I have girls and they're always like, who's the favorite? And when I had Lulu, I finally said, I am just going to let you know, girls, the favorite in the family is Lulu. Now you know. When families lose the family pet, like a child in many people's lives, it's called disenfranchised grief because you have to go to work the next day. You have to take time off, but it's not bereavement loss. It's just, you took time off because your dog died or your cat died. Yes. It's so very real, but the world doesn't see it. Right. It's just not recognized. Lisa and I were talking the other day about, and I'm going to bring it up. I'm just going to throw it out there. We talked about menopause. For women, we talked about menopause because it's remember we said it's the reaction to a change or a transition, the end of something, the beginning of something new, and so we have that response. And for a woman, when they look in the mirror, when their body literally changes and transforms, and you feel like, what just happened?
And it feels like it just happened, but all along it's been following you along like a shadow, just creeping up on you.
Oh, absolutely. When you can't count on your brain to remember things anymore. You can't count on your brain to come up with names and words, and you're asking yourself.
That's my personal favorite thing about
it's
the brain fog and the forgetting of words.
right.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
So women also grieve this loss of their mind, their body as they knew it, but it's disenfranchised. The world doesn't see it. And so I hear Lisa say frequently, I felt a certain way. and that's
often.
I felt a certain way. And what was it? It was grief. My friend was leaving. Well, my friend was leaving. Aren't we supposed to celebrate? Oh, you're going and you're moving off to a different place. You're supposed to be, oh, I'm happy for you. But I've lost that person who I could say, hey, let's go to Castle Luau. Even though there wasn't Castle Luau there, it was Castle Luau
across town, but it is, yeah.
Let's go to Castle Luau. But you couldn't, because that wasn't there anymore. I think of and I've always wanted to do this study. College seniors, when they have to leave the campus and go home, and they're leaving people they've lived with for 4 years, been vulnerable with, opened up to, and then it's over.
And even high schoolers, right? We're in graduation season right now, and they're all gassed up and hyped up about the act of graduation. Yet I'm positive that I'm not sure that they are all anticipating what's coming the day after graduation, or even a couple of weeks after, when we're no longer having graduation parties and nobody's still patting you on the back and saying attaboy, and now real life kind of starts to settle in and you start to miss what's going to happen. And I think it often happens in August.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because your mind is like, oh, I should be getting ready to go back to school. I should be school shopping. Oh, wait, I don't have to buy notebooks and binders and all of that stuff. So I think that sets in too.
Yeah. And so let's take it even further.
Please.
Okay. So taking it even further, let's talk about our high school athletes. Most high school athletes do not play in college. And so they also lose that identity of athlete. Athletes are frequently celebrated in K-12 schools. They've lost that identity of athlete because no one knows about that when they go into adult world.
Yeah, you're no longer Biff the superstar.
No, you're not. No. And or what's even
That one got me.
that was good. But even for those who then do go to college and they're not going to play sports. So I'm going to introduce you to a term, and you might know it, NARP, non-athletic regular person. And so when my daughter she was at Bath. She was left Bath High School, where she was an athlete for 4 years. Whoop, whoop, Riley Iiames. She goes to UF campus, University of Findlay. She goes to UF campus. And when she gets there, the athletes are wearing these orange shirts. And you knew they were athletes because you could identify the athlete. Riley walks in her plain clothes, and she's like, I'm just a non-athletic regular person. And that falling in her heart. I'm not identified as an athlete in this space. And so for our high schoolers, in the fall, when Friday Night Lights come, they're not on the field under the lights. They're up in the stands or they're at work.
Yeah.
And so they feel a certain way, and that's grief. That's grief. And so I should have brought my pop can. I use a pop can as a symbol. I wish I would have known. I brought my pop can. I want you to think. I want you to think of a pop can. Okay, so here it is, and I'm gonna shake it up. What happens when I pop the lid? It explodes. And that's what happens with grief when we feel it. When we feel it, we're like, I feel a certain way. I feel something right here. I feel like I want to cry. But you swallow it down. You swallow it down. Nope. I don't know what that's about. I don't want others to see me cry. And so when you keep on swallowing that down, it's like shaking a pop can up. And there's that pressure and that feeling. Finally, when you do let it come out, it does explode. It might explode as tears. It might explode as yelling and screaming, but it might explode as anger. And so I've swallowed it down. I don't want to show. And I feel sorry for you guys because in our society,
Yep,
women,
it's okay for women to be emotional.
Oh, yes, we can cry because
which we're trying to do better. Let's give our community credit. We're trying to do better.
We're trying to do better, but I'm going to speak about society, Western culture in general. I feel as if the rules that guys have about grief are literally killing guys. The rate of suicide in men that age, I think, is it 20 in the 20s up to the 40s. Yeah, that's where we see the higher numbers in suicide. And so society has said, if you got a problem, you need to man up. And if someone, or you have a loss, what the man is expected, you need to be the man and comfort the woman.
So that stigma, which, as I said, we are trying to come out of that and encourage. There's lots of programs and opportunities for men to speak about their feelings and to get help in processing those feelings. So we're glad about that. I just wanted to throw that out there. Since we're still talking about young people, and we mentioned high school athletes, we've spoken about college students, can we back up to even our youngest of K through 12 kids or K through 8? We call them kiddos oftentimes.
Yeah.
We don't want to leave them out of the conversation because we know a lot of youngsters in school, they're not encouraged to really share their feelings all the time. And we also know that our young kids and our young children don't always have the words to express what they're feeling. So do you have thoughts about that? Is that also a great softball to introduce our book for young children about grief? Have your way.
Yeah, thank you. So the kiddos, and yes, I call them the kiddos as well, because I worked in an elementary school. Out of the 34 years in public ed, I was 3 years as a high school math teacher, 1 year in high school school counseling, and then the rest, the 31 or the 30, were spent as an elementary school counselor. With the kiddos, I'm gonna talk about grief language or even words. And so Lisa's holding up a book, The ABCs of Grief. For our kiddos, having them even understand the words that go with it. Remember I said you feel something down here? You feel it, but you can't give it a name. That book is so great to introduce kids to. These are the words. These are some of the things that you might be feeling.
Yeah, there's an opportunity in there also to encourage them to fill in their own words and to recognize that what you might be feeling might not be what I'm feeling, and it's also okay. And so I think in there's some great words like zigzag and zany, because we don't exactly know how we feel. Of course, there's cry in there. There's some great words. Maybe we'll look at them in a bit. But that's what I appreciate about where the mental health field is going now, is that we are encouraging our young kids to own what they're feeling and to give them safe spaces to process that.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so for the kids, they are being raised in families. And families actually have also their own grief rules. And you're like, mm-hmm. So I want you to think of, how you were raised with grief and even fair exchange. When is the rule? The rule is, when should we go to the visitation or the wake? When should we go to that? What relationship do we have with the person? And then what relationship do we go to the funeral? Oh, if we have that relationship, we go to the funeral. And if we have that relationship, we actually get into our car and go out to the cemetery. Now, all of these rules that families have that they unintentionally pass on to their kiddos. Even the don't cry. Don't cry. No.
Be strong.
Yes, be strong, don't cry. Or the grieve alone. When we see mom and she's going to lose it, then she goes to her bedroom and cries alone. And so we even start this isolation in our grief because we learn that when we're kiddos because we watch our parents. And so one of the things that I would tell kids is that I always had that pop can available, and I would show it to the kids and I'd say, please, when you see your mom getting ready to cry, you tell her, just let it out. You got to let out those tears, because if you don't, you'll explode. And so I want you to, so the invitation to cry in front of your kids. Oh, and I even think of, I think of people who are hearing or watching this podcast and thinking, cry in front of your kids. I wasn't taught that. Right. It's okay. And it's okay.
Since you were mentioning disenfranchised grief and we're speaking about young children, what about when those situations happen where like a parent loses a job and now they can't participate in something that they've always participated in, or they can't go somewhere that they were really looking forward to because suddenly now there is a financial burden or a financial change? What do you recommend for our parents who are listening or our grown-ups who are listening to ways to explain that to their children, that we've had a change in lifestyle, and so that's going to mean a loss of some of our other situations and freedoms and activities that we've done in the past?
Right. And again, it's in the conversation. It's not in the go in your room and let those feelings out. It's in the let's sit here. And it's the listening. Frequently when we're trying to help another person, we've been taught to make it better, fix the problem. Parents, we do our best to fix our kiddos' problems. We don't want to see them cry. We don't want to see them mourn. And what they need more than anything is just mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, whoever their adult person is, to sit with them and just hold them and let them mourn and let them and allow that. And not try to explain it away. We can't explain away. The money's not there. The resources are not there to do what it is that you want to do, to be with those people on that team. And so you let them grieve and grieve. Because, and so there's also, I'm going to give you another term. It's called secondary losses.
That's where I was going.
Yep. Secondary losses are the loss. I said grief is the gift that keeps on giving. And so you have that initial event that causes grief. Then, because we just love to keep on giving, there are events that happen in the future that are related to this loss.
Can you share some examples?
Okay, so we'll stick with the kiddos. Child does not have, or the family does not have the resources for
The AAU team.
the AAU team.
Because those are costly.
Oh, so costly.
Those are second job needed to participate in AAU travel?
Yeah, it's the overnight. It's the travel expense. There's so much cost. You have to the cost to enter the tournament, and then you got to stay overnight and the gas,
And you pay to get into that facility, and you pay to park,
and you pay to eat.
all the things.
And the food is like a bottle of water is $5. Okay,
Let's use that example.
so going on with that example, we get the child gets the initial news. You are not going to be able to play on the AAU basketball team this summer.
Yeah.
Grief. And if we'll allow it, mourning. So we're not going to allow it just to sit down. We're going to allow it to pour out the mourning that goes along with that. But then the secondary losses come. Okay, the initial shock there and awe is there, but then the secondary losses come, and it comes in the form of social media, and Snapchats and group messages where you get to see the team, and then what becomes a joy becomes a sorrow. They won the tournament, and then you are supposed to be happy for them, but you feel the loss. But I wasn't there. And then those secondary losses might continue in.
There's such a spill of so many other emotions.
Because they're just right. And so when they win the tournament and you're not there and you feel a certain way down here, you either let it out or you go get in a fight with your siblings and punch them. Right. Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and let that out. So for our parents who are listening right now, knowing that when you're seeing it as loss is not just from death, loss is from change and transitions. And especially when you don't have, sometimes you have control, retirement. From our older folks, there's, oh, hooray, you retired from public schools after 34 years. Whoop, whoop, we're going to have a party for you. And then you've lost the identity, the relationships, the purpose that you found in your work, the meaning that you found in your work as you sit at home and you feel it, feeling a certain way, and it is grief. So for our kiddos, parents, if you can look at your child and they're feeling a certain way, and your thought is, well, they're sad or they're angry, sitting with them and really considering what change just took place. Is it a death where we no longer see that person, hear that person, spend time with that person, hug that person, call that person? Or is it change? The school year's over. Woot woot. School's out. I watched for years children on the bus at Perry. We'd sit and the kids would be on the bus and all of us teachers would be like, bye. And you see some of the kids hanging out the windows, not of course dangerously, but hanging out the window saying, bye. And then others in their seat sobbing, crying, as if you would see a child die or see a child respond to a death. But it is, again, that change, and they're no longer going to see that teacher. They know that teacher they love is not going to be their teacher next year.
I think my mind goes to recent events. We know that there's been quite a bit of weather moving across the country. Sometimes we wake up in the morning to the morning news and they're talking about, 15 tornadoes passed through the plains. And then you see all of those terrible video footages of neighborhoods and cities just plastered and gone. The cameras are there in the beginning and they show us what's happening. But then we also don't always know what happens after and what those families are experiencing. And I think that's another great example of either the secondary loss or the disenfranchised loss, because there's other things that's coming. And you don't think about, I lost all of my possessions right now, but what does that also mean later that we're not even anticipating? So I think we've spoken about children's spaces and how they've lost. And I think that's important to mention right now in this time not only of physical loss through storms and natural disasters, but we've also got a lot of other things happening in the country, whether it be political or religious related. What do you have to say, or what are your thoughts about some of those other delicate spaces that our country and our communities are experiencing now?
So this is for all of our folks who they're through their life and their families, and for generations, they get up on a Sunday morning and they go to church. And now we see churches that are no longer churches because they look out, and I think of some of our older generation that remembers the church that was filled with people. And on Sunday mornings, the Sunday school classes would be filled with children and adults. And there was a choir that wore robes, and the choir was filled. And they go to church on a Sunday morning, and what the church that was filled now has 15 people in it, listening to a pastor, and maybe they don't even have anyone to play the organ because people don't play the organ anymore.
A lost art.
I know.
I know a couple of organ players, though. I just need to throw that out there.
Does anyone in here play the organ? You're so cool. You play the organ. It doesn't even surprise me because you're so cool. All right. So very few, except for Chad, plays the organ. And so they feel a certain way on Sunday mornings when they walk in, and they remember what was, but it's changed, and there is a loss. I think of when we had a pastor that was, plucked up and said, "Hey, you're going to go to another church by the conference says. You're going to move to another church." Watching my daughter, who was baptized by him, crying as if he had died, but he was being moved. And so even in spaces such as churches, where churches aren't the way that they were, and people feel it, that's grief. And it's okay to grieve the loss of what was.
Yeah, just any big change like that. I mean, you're used to something, and now it's different or gone. And
right.
Yeah.
So we've done lots of problem talk, and I don't mind doing problem talk, but I'm also a girl who says, okay, problem talk has to be matched with solution talk.
Actions, yes.
There has to be solution talk. So I'm going to introduce another term. Okay. So you guys are going to be in school today. Another term.
Increase the community's vocabulary.
Okay. All right.
That's a good thing. A little bit of learning is good.
The term is loss orientation and restoration orientation.
Okay, now you got to say that again.
Slower.
Absolutely. Yep. Make sure everybody's getting it.
Yep. It's called a dual process of grieving, mourning. Dual process, dos process. Two things have to be in that process. Loss orientation. Loss when you are grieving, mourning, outpouring of what you're feeling. Then there's restoration. That's when things you are doing the things that you need to do in this life without this loss. Now, again, let's hear it as not just the loss of a person. It can be also the loss of an activity, the loss of a home, the loss of someone who has to move out of the homestead because it was sold to go somewhere else, the loss of one of our older folks who have to leave their homestead and go to a nursing home.
And or divorce and separation. We haven't spoken about that.
Yes.
Is something we got to talk about.
Yep. So we have this loss. And there has to be both. Now, this is where I want everyone to understand that and we talked about it at the very beginning. I'm going to reel it back into right now. We said at the very beginning, hey, people are raised with rules on how to grieve, how to do it the right way. Well, over the years and of these ways that we learn how to grieve, even scholarly, they've written about how to grieve. The truth is, there are no check marks that we check off our grief, and once we get to the end, it's over. That's not true. So there has to be both. There is loss, and there's also restoration. The balance is any way that a person sees the need to be. There's no rules on it. There's times where you're grieving and you're crying, and then you're doing life, the next thing. Think of a child at a funeral. They go up to the casket or the urn and they cry. And then eventually they make it back to the snack room where their cousins are at and they're playing. Kids are really good at both.
Moving forward to solutions more, what are some positive ways to grieve? Or I know everyone's different, but some examples of healthy ways to grieve and mourn. Yeah.
First of all, give yourself and please give everyone else around you permission to mourn, permission to scream, permission to cry, permission to talk about it and revisit it over and over and over again.
Mary, what happens if I don't cry?
And that is okay. And we have this thing. They're not crying. There's something wrong with them. I know that when my brother died in the hospital, people wanted to hug me, and I'm like, don't touch me. I didn't want to have someone up at my face. Everyone's different. And so for the person who's just like, they probably, to be honest with you, most likely that person has, and they were cried out. They're screamed out, they're cried out.
I think it's worth recognizing that there's so many things that could be happening, and we just didn't get to witness it, and it's okay. Maybe if I'm not crying in front of you, it doesn't mean that I wasn't crying this morning or that I won't be crying tonight, or I might not be crying in any of those spaces, but I'm still having a loss. Something that I oftentimes like to remind folks in the work setting, in the adult work setting, is that I don't think it's fair or realistic of us to expect that, Sally had a loss on Friday and now she's been gone, most of the week. Now, chop, chop, let's get back at it. I'm mad at our society that we sometimes do that. On Monday, we can say, we're so sorry for your loss. And then Friday, we're like, hey, you didn't respond to my emails. Can you get those reports to me, or can you get that thing done? I don't think that we always are the best coworkers or fellow humans when we forget that just because we're ready to move on doesn't mean that that person is.
No, they're not. And it's grace. It's understanding and seeing that person and thinking in your mind. Okay, so we'll go in your mind and then push it down into your heart. What does that person need from me right now? And you are permitted to ask, what do you need from me right now? And if it's, I need you to come over and help me get the lawnmower started. I don't know how to start the lawnmower. Help me start. Fine. Great. Do it.
Be me, by the way.
No, I understand. My husband, I'm still learning. So we think about the big things, but we also need to think about the teeniest tiny things. After my brother Rich died, people brought food. Loved the food. But we had one person bring toilet paper and paper towels and paper plates.
You don't think about.
No. And I remember it was years ago. He died in 1988. I still think of that. And when I go someplace, I bring toilet paper because you have all these extra people in your house. I know you got food, but you probably need toilet paper. You probably need paper plates. You probably need napkins.
Well, it's the details, right?
It's in the minute details.
And I would also add to folks, if you have someone experiencing some sort of loss, after the funeral and those remembrance services are over, please check on them in some weeks, in a month, right? Just let them know that we haven't forgotten. And not only in a funeral home, but in other spaces as well, right? I know that your job ended. How are you? How can I listen? What can I do? I think those spaces are really important to remember.
Mm-hmm. And also just asking a question, an open-ended question. Person retires. You see them later. How's it going? Are you traveling the world? Because
no, I'm broke because I didn't anticipate that retirement.
right, and my 401k just took a dump. Okay, no, it's not that. It's how's retirement? It's in this retirement. What have you found that you miss? And they'll hear that a different way, because now what you've done is you've popped the top off of this, and it's going to spill out. I miss the kids. I miss the relationships that I had at work. I miss the meaning and the purpose of the work that I did. Or it may come out, I am so glad that's over with. I don't miss nothing. But that's okay. Either way, it's okay. In our minds, we may expect an answer. When you ask an open-ended question, instead of, are you glad it's over? Just say, how do you feel about it being over? Yeah. That allows them to choose the answer. Not, I've just given you the answer, you just need to say yes.
And maybe they can open that pop can before it's built up to here. Right. I know personally, I just appreciate a simple open-ended question, sort of having to do with whatever I'm going through, but that allows me to say as much or as little as I want, but it makes me feel 10 times better just knowing that somebody thought about it in that way.
And that we're still on somebody's radar.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There's an activity in the Grief Recovery Handbook that's a timeline. I know that you know which activity I'm talking about. Can you explain that for folks who may not have the handbook but can still participate in that activity, since we were talking about how do we support and what do we do in this space? So that's one of my activities that I oftentimes suggest. Can you explain it?
So it's called a loss history graph. In the grief recovery method, they give you a little piece of 8.5 by 11 paper. I don't do that anymore. I give a person a manila envelope or manila folder, and I just say, open it up, draw a line, put it all on there. Now, and I also suggest that a person sit down with it and leave it open with a pencil or a pen, because you're going to add to it.
I'm just going to keep going to it.
When we think of loss, it is not just death. Remember, it's any time we have that change or transition. I think of leaving to go to school for kindergarten. For me, it was a loss because I no longer was able to stay home with my mom. Leaving high school, a loss. Not being able to, didn't make the basketball team, a loss. So when you start to really let your mind open up to what were all those changes that weren't welcomed. I didn't want those changes to occur. Or maybe I did want the change to occur. I did want that job in South Carolina, but I left everything here in Ohio that I was familiar with, and I got to go start over and make new friends. And so you put all of them on there and you realize this is what I've been feeling for years. And recognizing that those moments in my life, I was grieving and I didn't know it. Moving forward, I'm going to do better. I'm going to allow myself. And you're going to have these moments, another term, a stug. Yep, a short-term upsurge of grief. When it's 5 years ago that your cat died, and you're driving down the road and you see a cat and you're like, and you cry.
Because grief has no time limit.
There are no timelines. And so when that you all of a sudden you feel like crying, just go ahead and cry. Remember, pushing it down is still shaking up that can. It's gonna come out later, however you want it to come out. It's gonna come out later in that I don't like the way I feel, so I'm just gonna drink a beer, and I'm not gonna just take the top off. I'm gonna drink it too. So it's going to come. That lid is gonna come off. just let it come off then. And then restoration, you keep on moving. It's just, it is, you're right, it's the hills and valleys. And so for those who are with me here and for those who are listening, if you've been to the valley and you know what it feels like to be down there and you know the other things that goes with it, but you're here now, help the person down there. Help them as they're coming out. And it doesn't have to be to tell them what to do, but it's just in the knowing questions. Often I'll ask, so what unhelpful advice have you got from your friends? And a person will say, well, my husband died and my friend said, why don't you just get a boyfriend? Well, you can't replace the irreplaceable. I'll say it again. You cannot replace the irreplaceable. And so just because your dog died and you get another dog doesn't mean that you're not grieving the dog that died. And we are accustomed to replace the loss. Yeah. Yep. You want to feel better? Just replace the loss. Get something equal to it. Move on.
That's not always
Nope.
the best thing.
It just puts a stopper on this because you can focus in on something else. And trust me, I understand the need to focus in on something else because I want to feel better, but I still have this. So I'll talk about open tabs on a computer. I know none of you are like me because you probably close all your tabs. I have so many tabs open at the top of like Google that you can't even read what I'm looking at. It's just X's. Okay, so
Do you have 17 tabs open and you?
I have multiple browsers going at the, yeah.
isn't that fun? I do too because in my mind I might need that, and so I'm like, it's right up there somewhere. I'll just keep on going through, and then when I'm going through, I'm like, oh yeah, I want to read that one too. Okay,
Squirrel. Sorry. Not sorry.
That is the same thing with this grief that we push down. Remember that lost history graph with all those things on? Those are the open tabs at the top. We may not open it and visit it, but it's still running. It's still running, and it's still running in our minds and in our hearts, and it's still there. And all of a sudden it pop up. We open it up. You're like, oh. So what I'm saying is grieve it, mourn it. So then you get to X out and close the tab and you don't have 20 tabs open at the top.
And to continue the nerd analogy here, that tab running open takes resources from your computer and it slows it down and it makes the things you're...
Is that why my computer's so slow and the fan's always running?
But to go with that analogy, you're trying to push forward with what you got going on, but you got all this open stuff behind you just taking your resources from you.
That's deep, Cody.
Okay, you know what, Cody? I'm going to use that in class on Tuesday. That was really good. That was, yeah, boom, yeah.
That's now part of my toolbox.
Yeah, it is. It is in mine. I'll credit you.
I want to speak about the importance of just coming alongside of our person, our friend, our whomever, and just being silent. That's difficult until you master it. What are your thoughts on just coming alongside and just letting somebody be silent with you?
Yeah. So, so we think of a story of a man named Job, and he had lost everything.
Come on now. Go on, talk about it.
Okay. So he had lost his children. And the funny thing is he kept his wife. But anyway, so he lost his children, he lost his possessions, he lost his home, he lost his wealth, he lost everything except for his wife. And he is mourning. Oh, and then he also lost his health because then he's just covered with these blistering cysts and sores, open, seeping. And he's just sitting and he's mourning. He's grieving and he's mourning. And his friends come and they just sit with him. And they don't open their mouths. They just sit with him. And then when they open their mouths, that's when they weren't helpful anymore. So for all of you,
They were doing well, and then they weren't.
yeah. So for you and everyone in the room and everyone listening to this, if you want to help, you go sit with the person and take the pressure off yourself. There are no words. There is no scripture. There's nothing that you can say to make it better. You just sit with them. And if you open your mouth, the question is just an open-ended question. And I'm not even certain that the open-ended question is, what are you feeling? Because what they're feeling is grief and a lot of other crap. So maybe the question is there anything that you need? And it might be a Kleenex. It might be take my car to Whitewater and wash my car. It could be anything. Or for those of you who know what it feels like to be sitting in that heap of ashes, to say, are you having any dreams? Because sometimes people have dreams. But then close your mouth and just let the person talk. Cody, just like you're doing right now, you're shaking your head. What you're doing to me is you're encouraging me to continue talking. You didn't say a word. You shook your head. And that encourages me to talk. So, Cody, you're so good at this. Yes. And for everyone who's listening, you don't have to have magic words. Just, you can ask a question and just shake your head. When you're doing this, you'll be amazed as they're looking at you, and then they talk even more. And the things that they say are their truth that you never would have known to even ask about.
And don't rush them, right? We're just maybe even sitting in the background, right? I don't have to be right beside you. I can be in the space, and then just letting that person know that I'm just going to hang out for a while. If you think about something you need, I'm here. And be thankful. So we can't leave Job unfinished. What was Job's restoration?
So Job's restoration, I'm not sure because you're asking me that, and now I'm looking at you is there an answer that I'm supposed to quote correctly? Well, his wife said, "Curse God and die." That's why she was left behind. So
Was he restored?
Yes, he was restored. Okay, so I'm going to put this out there as well, because I actually use the story of Job as a question that I have students ponder in class. He was restored. Everything was restored. Children and possessions and homes.
I just needed to throw you that softball.
However, and this is the big thing, however, we can't forget what was lost. His children and his possessions were not replaced. You don't replace the irreplaceable. But remember, dual process. Life was restored, but there still has to be the balance of, and I had this loss. The loss is a permanent part of you. I always say the backstory is what makes the front story. I sit with you now because in the backstory, my brother died, my parents were divorced, lots of other things. But that's what makes the front story. I still hold it. It's still there. It's still an open tab. But it's not a tab that is sucking up my resources, because I've done the work. I've done the talk. I've been in spaces where people have allowed me to tell just that story over and over again until it brought meaning to my life. Rich died, and I couldn't find any meaning. I was like, Lord, what good came out of this? But then when I was able to help others who were grieving, I could say, I get it. I'm here. I know how to sit with a person. I know what to bring to their home. I'm not bringing food, I'm bringing toilet paper. And so the backstory makes for the front story. And the front story, in my case, is stronger because I've been permitted to grieve.
So a couple of things as we start to kind of wind down our conversation. When's the time for somebody to seek professional help when they have recognized that they are experiencing some form of grief or loss?
Okay, so I use this analogy, and we have the We Care people. So our community has service providers, but if you don't utilize the service provider, you sit in a canoe alone. So I want you to think of a canoe. You're on one side, on a bank, and across this water that has current is the other side. And you need to be over there. And you hop in your boat and you start trying. You're rowing, but you keep getting pushed down and you want to be over on the other side. So a person comes along and says, "Hey, I'll hop in the boat with you." So the next person hops in, and so now you're both rowing and you're getting somewhere. But you know what? You're still not getting to the other side. Another boat comes along and a person in it says, "I'll hop in the boat and row with you." And now we got 3 people and we're getting somewhere. The more people that we add to the boat, the better success we have to getting to the other side. So for our grievers who sit in the room, who sit in a space hearing this, if you feel like, I feel like I'm just not getting anywhere and I'm rowing, but I seem to be getting pushed to the side, bring another person in. Is it a friend? Fine. Who's the friend who can sit and listen to your story repeated over and over again without trying to fix you, without trying to tell, "Well, I'll tell you what you need to do. You just need to do this and you'll be all better." Just someone who's going to sit with you and listen. Put them in the boat. If you still don't feel like you're getting anywhere and you feel like, "Hey, I need some pastoral help." Well, someone at the church, hop in the boat. And then you think, "I'm doing all this work, but now it's really hard for me to live life. It's hard for me to go to work. It's hard for me to cook for myself. It's hard for me to get out of bed." The people in your boat are going to be able to help, but now you need more. That's when I think, hey, I need to bring someone in, maybe a counselor or a licensed independent social worker. Maybe I got to bring in that professional talk helper. So I bring that person in and I'm getting somewhere now. I feel some relief and I feel stronger, but I'm still struggling. And is it time now to go to my doctor and say, "Here's all that I'm doing. Here's all the people in my boat." And the doctor may say, "You need medicine." Medicine is not weakness. Medicine means that in your brain, the chemicals in your brain aren't working the way they're supposed to. The medicine helps your brain work the way that it's supposed to. And it doesn't mean that you lack faith in God if you have to take medicine. We don't look at a person who has diabetes and say, "If you had more faith in God, don't take that insulin." So looking at a person who is not able to get out of bed and saying, "If you need medicine, take the medicine so you can get out of bed. Otherwise, you're not even going to be in the church pew. You're going to be listening on the line."
We always like to share some resources. As I said, as we wrap up, we spoke about the Grief Recovery Handbook, which is available wherever you buy books and things of that nature. And we spoke about the resource for children, the ABCs of Grief, which helps them to put language to their feelings. I also want to mention What's Your Grief, because I'm a list-making person. I love lists. What I like about this resource is that it's a short read. It's not difficult to understand, and it just gives you things to check in on yourself or for your loved ones about, hey, have you considered taking in nature today? Hey, are you hydrated? Hey, did you eat something besides trash? And let's just admit it, we do eat a lot of bad things, and that does play a part into why we aren't feeling as well as we could be feeling. Have you talked to somebody? Things of those nature. So I appreciate this book, What's Your Grief? It's by Eleanor Haley and Lisa Williams. It's also available wherever you get your books and resources. But we do like to always share resources with our listeners. And then we also, Cody's going to talk about 988 and some of our other online resources.
Yeah. So you can call 988 and they can hook you up with people to talk to and get some help. The website, wecarepeople.org, has a free screening tool. So there's screenings for all kinds of stuff. Lots of screenings.
All free.
All free, all anonymous, and really at the end of the screening, it just gives you even more resources of different places to call. So the website is a great resource. If you're feeling really low and it's an acute issue, a crisis, we have the Crisis Center, or you can call the Hope Line at 1-800-567-HOPE. Great people there will guide you through that. Plenty of resources in our local communities. So,
And we always like to share that you are not alone in this space, whether it's grief or loss or really any of the other areas of mental health and wellness. So we want our audience to know that there are those of us out there who will listen and get you to a better place. Dr. Mary Iiames, would you like to have any final words before we wrap it up for the day?
Just remember that when you're on one side of the bank and you're trying to cross the river that has a current moving, sitting in that canoe by yourself with an oar, I know that you're trying your hardest to do it on your own. It is okay to invite people into your boat to get you to the other side. But then your responsibility is be that person who hops in someone else's boat.
Nicely said.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mary Iiames.
and that's it for today. Thanks everybody for listening or watching, and we'll see you next time.